Welcome aboard the Pilot Money Guys podcast, where our mission is to help professional pilots build and protect wealth on their journey to financial freedom. This podcast is brought to you by Leading Edge Financial Planning.
Good morning, Kevin. Welcome, Pilot Money Guys. It's good to be back and good to have you back again. And so we got an exciting topic today, market-based cash balance plans. And you've been working hard on this topic. So I'm excited to jump in and see what you got.
No, I'm super excited, Charlie. I get to use the word annuity, pension, tax deferral, a lot of Roth. If you're, you wouldn't think Roth would be in the conversation, but no, I'm super excited today and ready to go. I had my 3 cups of coffee beforehand.
Absolutely. I'm on my 3rd. Did you practice the acronym MBCBP? MBCBP?
Well, now that you said it so fast and so well, I'm not going to try. I'll call it a cash balance pension, probably.
I've practiced. But also, before we get going, we want to thank everybody again, as always, for rating and reviewing the podcast. We really appreciate that. Take the Pilot Wealth Index. It's on the, take a look at wherever you're looking at podcasts on your phone. Take that index. It's a short quiz, basically, is what it is to see how you're doing if you're on track. So we've got some great results, some great feedback from that. Check it out. It's questions designed by us just to make sure you're thinking about the right things. And by all means, if you need help, support, feedback from us, let us know. Give us an email, shoot us an email when we respond to you. And which we will if you take the Pilot Wealth Index. So yeah, that's been really, really fun to see that.
It's sort of made by pilots for pilots.
Yeah.
Unless you don't consider yourself a pilot anymore, Charlie. I know you helped design the index.
It's getting further and further away.
Okay.
So anyway, I might need to go fly a little bit just to keep it going. But anyway. Let's talk today. In fact, it will be mainly Delta oriented. There's not that many of the 4, I'll say 4 United, Delta, Southwest, and American. United and American do not have theirs up and running yet. Southwest does, but Delta has, yeah, exactly. Southwest is waiting on one little detail there, the spill cash, which is a big deal, actually. So hopefully that happens sooner than later. That's going to be great. But Delta's is full up running, so we're going to address most of those today. Most of the conversation today will be about Deltas and their strategies that their pilots get to utilize. So probably worth listening to for everyone because it's there's going to be some overlap and we don't know what Uniteds and Americans will look like yet. So with that being said, Kevin, any thoughts before we just jump right into the meat of the mission here?
Yeah, I would just say for those that are not with Delta, it's just so interesting for us, Charlie, to go through all the differences. This is really, I'll use the word divergent. I don't know if that's the right word or not. Maybe I'm misusing a big word. But this is just a place where the airlines are different with what they're doing with the market-based cash balance plans, the spill cash. This is where there's a lot of strategery involved with deciding how to save.
Yeah, good use of the word strategery. I love it. And we're also going to have a visual or 2. We'll talk to that as best we can, but you can see this podcast on YouTube as well. So YouTube, go check out our search Pilot Money Guys. And this is going to be episode or flight 106, as we say. So check that out on YouTube if you want to see the visuals and you want to see Kevin's handsome physique as well. So
Yes, I'm really quite in shape at my age. Hey, and also there's a video that's coming out. We're editing it right now, Charlie. Just a straight up YouTube video on the Delta market-based cash balance pension plan. So that's going to be released any day now.
Any day.
Very exciting.
Highly anticipated. You worked hard on that one, so it's going to be good. All right, Kevin. So let's jump in. Meat of the mission. I'm a airline pilot, specifically Delta in this case. One of the first things we want to just lay the foundation of the nuts and bolts of the market-based cash balance plan, because it's kind of been from the feedback that we've had, like, mysterious. What is this mysterious thing? And it's very simple, really, but it's confusing because it's not a 401k. It's not a pension. It's a little bit of both. So in general, here's one way that I think about it, and we can call it hybrid if that helps, but it's basically the airline will have all the pilots pool their money together. You will have a statement that you can see how much money you have, but it's essentially all pooled
eventually.
Together. Yeah. And it's invested 60% bonds, 40% stock, so far. That's what we've seen airlines do. Again, Delta, Southwest. So it's very conservative. Again, the anticipated rate of return, if we use historical numbers, about 5% probably. So conservative, right?
Right.
And the last important thing there, I believe, or one of the most important things I should say, is that the monies that go into it, not the growth, but the monies that go into it is guaranteed by the airline. So that's where the pension piece comes into play. But there could be some growth on top of that. Or there should be some growth on top of that as well. And, the airlines is going to be putting the majority of the money in there. I think it's safe to say that. So hopefully that helps people understand the foundation a little bit. But Kevin, anything to add to that, or any color that I'm missing?
I think it's really fascinating, Charlie, because again, it's not a pension, it's not a 401k, but it is your money. If you have money in there, you can take it when you leave. You don't have any control over how to invest it, but you have control about moving it when you're 59 and a half. You can move money at that point. And as you said, Charlie, Delta guarantees the balance. You can't lose money. In the short run, you could see if you go to Fidelity, you could see your account balances are down in the short run, but eventually Delta will make you whole and you cannot lose money in it. So there's lots of fantastic issues with this. The only other thing I'll say, just going forward, is that you really control how much money goes into the market-based cash balance plan. You control how much goes in by the 401k contributions, either pre-tax, Roth, or after-tax. And that's the fascinating part of the strategy.
Yep, that's where it gets a little bit complex. So we'll get to that more in a minute. But hopefully that foundation helps people kind of gauge where we're talking about today, what we're talking about. So Kevin, these two plans so far, eventually two more will follow, but why do the airlines, what's the impetus for this? Why is this important? Why is the market-based cash balance plan important, and why have the airlines adopted it?
Yeah, so Charlie, in a word, or two words, for pilots. It's for the pilots. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, when we have a profession here where people are making more than most, and they're making more than can be put into the 401k. It's also called a profit share, qualified profit share. They can put more into it than other people can, and they just maximize all the limits. So this is sitting on top of the 401k qualified plan. It's now a pension plan that you can actually put a lot more money in. So to me, Charlie, when we first started working together and we were seeing everybody's maxing out their 401ks that are captains, 9 years in, they're all maximizing it. And then all the cash is just spilling out all over the floor. I love the term spill cash. All the cash is spilling back to their bank accounts and they're being taxed on it. So this really is about not having to have all the money spill back to the pilots' bank accounts. Yeah.
And I love one of the things you described there is, you could do what you want with the money, move it at 59 and a half, roll it over IRAs. That's a qualified thing. It's your money, not an asset of the airline. It's your money. It's qualified. And I think too, Kevin, what started to happen was as the salaries of the airline pilots started to go up tremendously in the last 5 years, the IRS limits almost inhibited pilots from keeping up with their savings, keeping up with their income. You know what I mean? And as their income went up, their savings didn't go up proportionally with it, is what I'm trying to say. So these market-based cash balance plans are part of that solution to help people save the amount they need to, so they don't take a huge pay cut at retirement. So that's just my opinion on why it's so important as well and why they adopted it.
Charlie, big emotional trap here with just having the 401k filled up. And the emotional trap is that I'm doing all I can do for retirement. And that's what we saw with some pilots. So now this is another quote unquote retirement account. So you can even do more with retirement without saving in your bank or your brokerage account or anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, well, that's awesome. Good description. And that's why they're doing it. It's a tremendous benefit. We'll talk about some things that are less tremendous, but yeah.
Yeah, the number one complaint from pilots, we get this day in and day out, is I'm paying too much tax, right, Charlie? So I say it's the number one, number two, and number three complaint we get from pilots. They contact us and they say, "Hey, Kevin, you're the tax guy," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the tax guy." They're like, "Save me taxes." So And when you work for the man, Charlie, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, you work for the man, you're going to pay tax, unfortunately. But the market-based cash balance plan was put in to help pilots have more control over their taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Evidently, you and I work for the man too, because
we do.
We don't get to escape it either. But yeah, it's painful. The pilots are making more now, and they're up in these 35 and 37% tax brackets, and it's just it's a really shocking when that first happens.
Sure. And our California pilots, Charlie, they're circling 40, 49, 50% in some cases. So it's crazy.
It's shocking. So Kevin, we can go a couple different ways here. What's you started to allude already. What's in it for me? The good old radio station that Zig Ziglar used to talk about all the time, WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? So now that I've gone thrown back there, big throwback to Zig Ziglar. What do you think about that?
Yeah. And for the young people that are listening, he was one of the first gurus of how to think and how to be successful, I guess, right, Charlie?
Absolutely.
Anyway, so the reason why we as planners like this plan so much is, and we think that pilots may as well, is because it's automatic savings. And it's a retirement account, and you can set it and forget it, sort of. And we'll get back to the sort of, but it's just a way to save more. So we like automatic savings, and we hope that the pilots as well like that they can save more money. We talked about taxes, that you can more control the timing and the nature of taxes. And so we'll get into that a little bit. But the other issue with a market-based cash balance plan is that you do have some control over how much money goes in each year. The way that Delta designed it is if you don't put a lot of money in the 401k, then less money will go into the market-based cash balance plan. So that's something we think that's in it for pilots as well. And you may or may not have the opportunity to opt out in the future. We think you might. With future contracts, but we don't know that for sure. So here's the last one, Charlie. The ability to save, invest, and then move money when you're 59 and a half. The freedom, the fact that it's your money, even though it's going into a plan, it's your money. So those are all the things I think. And did I forget anything, Charlie, that you're thinking about?
No, I think you nailed it, especially for a number of reasons. One, number two, and number three are tax deferral. But there's an ugly side of that, and the tax bomb, and we'll get into strategies in just a second, because I'm going to ask you about some case studies. What if I'm a high income captain? What if I'm a young FO? What are some things I need to think about? But what could go wrong with this plan is what we've said before, or somebody coined the phrase tax bomb, right?
Yeah.
So
Charlie, can you say the word bomb on a podcast?
You can on a podcast. I was thinking our pilots, is the bomb. And, what is that from Meet the Fockers or something like that?
Yeah, sir, you can't say the word bomb on a plane. Yes, I can.
Don't talk about the tax bomb in the cockpit. But anyway, so there's so much goodness here, as we say. There could be too much. We've seen people that they do an awesome job saving for retirement. I mean, retirement is secure, and they're deferring taxes. And I've seen, Kevin, where sometimes I'm like, hey, maybe you should, take some time to build up your cash savings now. There's some goodness in that, just being able to live life with a little bit of money in the bank. But also at the same time, we get to retirement, we have all of our money is deferred. If I'm a military, retiree that gets a pension, that's taxable. 401k taxable if it's pre-tax. Market-based cash balance plan taxable. My required minimum distributions are skyrocketed. So there's a lot of things, if we get this thing out of balance, that we need to think about that. And so we desperately sometimes want to avoid these 35, 37% tax rates. But at the same time, we have to have a little bit of balance there too, to avoid that tax bomb.
Yeah, well, no, it really cracks me up, Charlie, because, when I was a younger man and looking at this RMD problem, I was like, yeah, must be nice. Must be nice to have that problem. I wish I had that problem. But like all problems, when you do have them, they still are a problem. So here's the setup, Charlie. I defer every year I work for the airline. I don't pay taxes in the first few years of my retirement. Maybe now 10 years almost you cannot pay taxes, and then whoosh, all of a sudden you got to take these RMDs, and now you're just paying an incredible amount of tax. And it's because your accounts are so darn big. So that's why I say, I wish I had that problem. But we work with people that have hit RMDs and started to have to take out massive amounts, and your Medicare goes up. You talk about making someone angry, a benefit that you paid for your whole life, and now all of a sudden, hey, you're rich, you make too much, you got to pay an extra $200 a month for each of you for Medicare. So these issues are real. We hope that a lot of people will have to deal with these issues, but the time to deal with this issue, Charlie, is to create a long-term plan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to foresee into the future, and that's what we do. Our job, we feel like, is to help people to make the future real, because it's hard as human beings to look at age 75 or 73 when I'm going to be taking my required minimum distributions. We can share with them the pain it is to take money out that you really don't want to take out of your retirement plans. You don't need to, and the pain of paying taxes on money at that time because you don't need it, and that really doesn't make people very happy, to say the least. I think, Kevin, we won't get into the detail on this, but the Secure Act 2.0 that raised the required minimum distribution age also concentrated the timeline that we have to pull money out of those taxable accounts. So that's another challenge that we have to think about. And again, just part of balancing, like how much goes in this market-based cash balance plan, how much balancing of tax deferral do we do now so that we don't get, well, quite frankly, out of balance. So those are things that we think about, or that we think are important to think about as you make these decisions. And not to mention, I have to pay, there's college bills I need to pay for. There's, maybe some debts I want to pay off now. So maybe I want to minimize what goes into some of these market-based cash balance plans, depending on your circumstances.
Yeah, I would just say that, we learned this idea from a pilot a couple weeks ago, and I think it's a pretty brilliant statement. We've been hearing about this greatest wealth transfer in the history of the world. And so not only sometimes do our pilots have really big IRAs, but sometimes their parents did, because usually people, that are highly educated, like pilots, and I mean that sincerely, Charlie. Sometimes pilots make fun of themselves, but they're extremely highly educated. They come from parents that are as well, and so not only do you have your own tax bomb that's brewing, but also we've seen people inherit IRAs and have to get all the money out in 10 years. And so, you're going along, you're planning for your own tax bomb, and then you get hit with a second tax bomb of inheriting an IRA. So anyway, that's the issue here is defer, defer, defer. Used to be what every CPA was trained to do. Now it's more, let's fly below the radar and not have to pay wicked high taxes in certain years. Yeah,
and over your entire lifetime, because a lot of our folks are in retirement for 30 years. So it's hard to imagine, but there's a lot of taxes to pay in retirement that we'd like to, like you said, fly below the radar. So Kevin, if it's all right, let's jump into a scenario if you're ready for that. And one of these, we've got a graphic we'll show in a minute, but the first, maybe most common is, hey, I'm a high income captain. And I think captains at the majority of the airlines now, with the new contracts, if they just fly their schedule, they're probably 400,000 plus if they just fly the schedule. If they're picking up anything extra or getting any, I think there's different names at each airline, premium at Southwest, or what is it, blue slips, I think at Delta, I can't remember the exact name, but they're making a lot, and 5 and 6 and 700,000 is not unusual as it used to be. So what is it? What are our thoughts for them? A Delta pilot making 600,000 and 700,000, Kevin. What do you think?
Yeah, so let me show you this graphic, Charlie. And for those that are not watching, I'll try to explain what the graphic suggests. But this is from, I believe this is from ALPA. January 19th, 2024, this was released, the R&I update. We think it's a fantastic piece. It actually goes through these scenarios. It writes them out and says, if you wanted to read the scenarios, you can. And again, we think this is fantastic. It's delineated by being a pilot that's 225, first officer, I would assume 225, and then a pilot that's making 425. In this case, probably a captain, maybe a really long-standing FO that loves their schedule. But anyway, so we don't have the $600,000 person, Charlie, but we can discuss that as well. But for the captain that's making 425, the captain could choose to put no money into the 401k. Charlie, what's the amount that a captain under 50 can put into a 401k? Do you know that offhand for 24 and 25?
Yes, 24 is 69,000. It was the maximum, and so this year, 2025, the maximum is 70,000. That's the entire, airline and pilot. So the pilot is 23,500. There you go. 23 last year, 23,500 for this year. So a lot of numbers.
That's right. So that's the direct contribution piece that the pilot can make for either Roth or for regular non-Roth 401k. They can also put extra money in after tax, Charlie. So those are the levers that you can really pull. So in pilot number one says, I don't want to put any money into the 401k. I'll just let the non-elective contribution fill up my 401k. And so company contribution, 17% times 425 is 72,250. Mm-hmm. Now, Charlie, this is really confusing for people, but the 425, it's treated a little bit differently, some of it, because once you hit the 401a 17 limit of 345 last year, 350 this year, the money has to go somewhere else. So out of this 72,250, most of it is going into the 401k, 58,650, and then the market-based cash balance plan, the spill, of that 17% non-electives going to the cash balance plan. Any comments around scenario one for pilot, for captain pilot?
I just want to clarify,
yes.
just because it's a lot of numbers and it's kind of complicated. In this scenario we're looking at, because of the IRS rules, the maximum, if you don't contribute anything as a pilot, the maximum your airline could put in your 401k last year was 58,650, and this year is 59,500. That's the maximum your airline can put in your 401k. So then, as you stated, the rest then has to go somewhere else, I think is the safe way to say it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the no-save captain. So total of 72,250. Charlie, that's not chump change. It's not bad. But the second captain in scenario two wants to do more. And so they go ahead and they maximize, the regular limits that a person can contribute. They put in 23,000 in this example here. You could do 23.5 in 2025. But they go ahead and they fill up their part. Okay. Now this could be either Roth 401k or non-Roth. And then once again, so you put 23,000 and they still will put in the 17% based on your $425,000 income. So they'll still put in that 17%. But as you just stated, the most that can go into the 401k qualified part of the 401k is 69,000. So that is the most that goes in there. And because the pilot put in 23,000, the rest spills into the market-based cash balance plan. So an example in scenario number two, which we'll call the full save pilot captain, 26,250 is going into the market-based cash balance plan. So total, this person is saving 95,250 in a year. That's really what's happening. And the only reason that this can happen is because of the market-based cash balance plan. That's the only reason why this can happen. Any comments on scenario number two, Charlie?
Yeah, I just want to say it's just phenomenal that $95,250, and it's even more in scenario three, can go into a qualified plan. I mean, that's just, hats off to the negotiators for Delta and Alpha, because that's incredible. And I hope American and United get the same. But, that's just phenomenal to be able to get all that into a qualified plan. So that's great.
Well, that's right, Charlie. And so pilot number three is I'll call super saver captain. So the super saver captain knows about the rules of the 23.5 that they can put in the regular 401k. But pilot number three, and Delta and Fidelity allows this, which is fantastic. They can put in after-tax money too. So why the heck would you put in money after tax, Charlie? I just paid tax on it. Extra money goes in. They can put in $53,948, and it can all go into after-tax Roth, or it can all go into pre-tax money or after-tax money.
Yeah. Delta has another great benefit, as do several other airlines, where you can put in your limit last year of $23,000, this year $23,500. You can put in that limit, and then you can make an election to put in after-tax money. Since you've gone over the IRS limit, your contribution limit, it has to be after tax, which is great, because then you could set up at Fidelity an automatic conversion to Roth, which is called the mega backdoor Roth. And there's lots of goodness there. So that's pretty incredible. And pilot number three is forcing even more money into the market-based cash balance plan. So that's it's just phenomenal to be able to see that.
Yeah. So the interesting part about scenario number three is that the company is still putting in exactly the same amount. The non-elective contribution has not changed in any of the scenarios, Charlie. The only thing that's changed is the amount of money the pilot is putting in. And so this time, once again, 69,000, you hit the limit. 53,948 was yours. The rest is part of that non-elective contribution. I'm not going to try to do public math. But then we have 57,198 that spills. The other part of this, and this is a foot stomper for me, is that you can still have not only 126,198 going into your 401k, but you could have a good amount of this tax deferred. Now, the after tax obviously going to go to Roth, but you can have a ton of money that's still deferred for a pilot, and you can also get a ton of money into the Roth. So to me, this is like superhero status, and it's 126,198. Captain number three is getting in there. If it was the $600,000 income, Charlie, I don't know what the amount would be, but it would be 17% times that extra 175,000. It would be a super amount of money going in.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is very unique to Delta. You know, like I said, Southwest is the only other airline right now with it up and running, partial ways anyway. And theirs is different than this. They don't have these. It's not quite unlimited, but I'll use this cap or use that word. Southwest has a lower cap on what can go in the market-based cash balance plan, but this is very Delta specific, and it is a ton of money that can go in there and be either deferred. But Kevin, I love the little nuance that I think you're going to talk to about. Maybe a Delta pilot might consider some Roth.
Yes.
So go ahead on that one if that's the right time anyway.
Yeah, and we can talk more about this in another slide. But 53,948, all of that could be Roth, Charlie. Yeah. You could put the first 23,500, whatever the amount is, into Roth directly. You can put the rest in after tax. To me, getting 53,948, again, I call this superhero status because you're going to have that money now going forward, never taxed again if you follow the rules of the Roth. That's really important. Roths can be taxable if you take them out before 59.5 and certain other rules. But you're getting a tremendous amount of money into Roth, and then all of the other money is getting tax deferred. So that to me is better than a pilot, for example, not putting any money into the plan, taking the deferral and then having the money spill out and paying high taxes on it, investing it in a taxable account and maybe paying more tax. So this Roth really is, they call it the mega backdoor Roth type process here. But to me, this is just really phenomenal. You're getting tax deferral and you're getting a bunch of money in the Roth.
Yeah. This can provide some balance if you're willing to do it. Put in some Roth in your contribution, in the after-tax contribution, and then when you get to retirement, you've got a head start on chipping away at that mountain of pre-tax monies that are going to have to come out either via required minimum distribution or monies you need to live on. So I think that's a great planning tool.
Yeah, Charlie, we've also heard why did they do this? Like we've heard that quite a bit from pilots, and The they is, might be the union, might be somebody else. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But like this, we think is such a good thing that you can get, and I'm going to call it almost unlimited. There are some rules about how much can go into the cash balance plan. But we know some pilots will be very upset about this because when they make a ton of money, this money will go into the cash balance plan.
Mm-hmm.
If you made $1 million, you'll get a lot of money in the cash balance plan. You can't have it spill if you've joined the cash balance plan. If you've gotten yourself into it. So we understand that some people will think this is negative, that you can't get the spill cash like you can. For example, with Southwest, you're going to be forced to take spill cash after a certain amount of money. So, but we're going to look at this as positive, but it also could be looked at as a negative.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, that's the high income. Are you ready to switch to the other scenario? And maybe as we transition, I think both the high income pilot, lower income pilot, because I don't know that there are any low income pilots anymore with the new contracts, but as we transition to that different scenario, I think one thing that could be common is the pilot might go, hey, I've got all this money now in market-based cash balance plan. It's too conservative. It's too conservative. I'm 40 and I've got a bunch of money there. And so I don't like that. I'm not happy about that. But what are some solutions for that thought process anyway?
Yeah. So when you're 59 pilot, 59 years old, it's a lot different than when you're 30 years old, 40 years old with the cash balance pension plan. We realize that. So first of all, to answer your question, Charlie, we do think there's still a lot of goodness in the plan for younger pilots, but they do really have to see it differently than the captain or a person that's near retirement. So anyway, pilot one says, I don't want to play. And so pilot one is making $225,000. They say, I don't want to put any extra money in the market-based cash balance plan. That's not a problem. You don't have to. The way you do this, Charlie, is by not contributing to your part of the 401k. You don't put in the $23,000. So when you don't put in the $23,000, the 17% of 225 is $38,250. So that's it. That's what goes in. And where does it go, Charlie? It goes to the 401k because you have not reached that 350 401a 17 limit of income. You can't reach it. You're making 225 and the limit is 350. So Charlie, also the money that's all in the 401k is all tax deferred. That's part of this. So so pilot number or scenario number 2 for the the full save pilot first officer puts in 23,500 this year. I'll stop saying that. The company puts in exactly the same non-elective contribution. You see, once again, across the board, it's always 17% of whatever their salary is. So in this case, it reaches up to 61,250 for those of you that are listening. So that's below the 415 limit of 69 last year, 70. I think it's 70 this year, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's below the limit. So all of it goes into the 401k. First officer has full control over all of the money. So, scenario number 1 and number 2 for the lower time pilot is 0 going into the market-based cash balance plan, Charlie. And they could put 23,000 in the Roth 401k, or they could put 23,000 in the regular 401k. Okay, so scenario number 3, this is where it kind of gets interesting, because this is where a person says, and we'll get to the investment of the cash balance plan in a second here, but they say, I do want to participate. Okay, so they super fund. In this case, they make 225, Charlie. They get 56,250 into the plan. They get the 23 plus. They get as much as they can. They fill it up by April 30th in this scenario. They super fund it up front. It's all up front. They make the decisions on January 1st to do this. If they don't make the decision early in the year, they won't be able to do this. Neither will the captain, by the way. So anyway, 69,000 once again goes into the 401k. The rest spills into the market-based cash balance plan. So 25,500. Now you're part of the cash balance plan. Charlie, comments around pilot number 3.
So this scenario, the pilot's spouse is a doctor. because you're making 225 and you're putting a ton of money in, the first 3 or 4 months of the year. So that's phenomenal.
Or Charlie, this could be a former military person that's done their 20. They're getting a pension as well, and they're able to defer some tax here because the pension's coming to them and they're paying tax on it every year. So, so you mentioned the idea of the young person and how it's invested. And we're going to jump to that now, Charlie, because I think that's extremely important for pilot number 1, maybe even for pilot number 2. But can you just opine a little bit about recency bias and stock market returns, and just that the punch bowl is here, and the punch bowl has a lot of liquor in it, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I can't continue on the punch bowl analogy, but what I feel like happens, and what you're alluding to, is that when the stock market is good or going well, whatever that means to someone, whatever definition that is to somebody, they don't want the conservative investment. They want to be more aggressive, and they don't like the nature of the market-based cash balance plan. That's too conservative. I need more exposure to equity. Things are going great. However, March 2020, people are very, very thankful that they have that diversification and that sleeve, if you will. And it's just like our retired military folks. There's a comfort level there of, hey, I have this, in this case, semi-guaranteed, if you will, but a military person, they have this guaranteed pension. Boy, that brings comfort. It provides flexibility. So there is a lot of good things about that, but there are some options for offsetting that conservative nature as well if you're young enough that you feel like you should be, majority equities for a long time. So those are my thoughts on the punch bowl. I'm assuming that's what you meant.
Yeah. Well, recently things have been so great. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time someone said, why don't we just put the money in the stock market and just, everything's going to be great. And yeah, that's the way it's been, and may still be. And we think it will be.
I think it's just discipline, to think about, like, okay, I feel good now. I want more equities, but we need to take a step back in that. It doesn't matter how we feel. We don't invest with our gut, right? We kind of need to be, smart about this thing. And so that's kind of the way I think about it.
Yeah. So we often tell people you have to look at your whole portfolio, all your money, not just one individual account. But I think this is a time, if I'm a first officer, Charlie, I'm going to be thinking this is my safe money, or safer money, I should say. It's 40% equities, still going to have a little juice in there to get some returns. 60% bonds, safer than equities as far as up and down. And like you said, if you looked at 2020, we saw people's faces. We saw a lot of them virtually, but people were very, very upset. We were upset. Once again, in 2022, we have people that are 100% equities saying, maybe I should have had a little bonds. So anyway, this market-based cash balance plan, it's your safe money. It's your safer money. And you cannot lose money in it because Delta will make you whole. So that's the way I would ask young people to consider looking at it as the safe money if you're going to put money in this. Charlie, what else you got before we show the numbers?
Yeah, if I was a young pilot and I didn't, again, this needs to be well thought out. This is not something that we can recommend on a podcast. It needs to be well thought out. But if I wanted to be more aggressive, well, then I can do that on my 401k side. I can be a little bit more aggressive and like you said, look at the whole pot of money as one thing, and kind of like our military folks do sometimes. They can be a little more aggressive because they have that pension. So those are my last thoughts on that. It's not a huge obstacle, I don't believe. And I think the good things outweigh that, obstacle, if you will.
Absolutely. So one of the most overused phrases in finance is it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. However, Charlie, a number of Delta pilots last year had money spill into the market-based cash balance plan at the end of the year. And three of the months, this is just for people that can't see, this is using a 40-60 portfolio that somewhat mirrors what Delta is doing. It might be a little bit different, but it's very close. In the fourth quarter of last year, if you had your money spill into the market-based cash balance plan, you lost money. And we saw that on some statements from some of the clients we work with, Charlie. So, I heard that maybe it was about 15% positive for the market-based cash balance plan since the beginning. I don't know that to be true. It was the time of the thing I listened to. But for some people, when the money came in, they immediately had a loss. And so when this happens, you say, boy, this is stupid. Why am I putting money into here, especially when other accounts did well last year? So Charlie, this whole thing of, bad timing, is this something that a young pilot should care about? Is this something that a 63-year-old pilot should care about if they put money in and immediately goes down?
No, I don't, absolutely not. I think it's the right answer, but I could see where emotionally it would be a little bit like, wait a second, what just happened there? But yeah.
So this is the lost decade. There's not been one lost decade in U.S. stock history. Lost decade means negative return in the U.S. stock market as looked at by the S&P. There's been three. Great Depression, nobody knows anyone that was there right now. So the 1970s, almost no one knows anyone that was there for the lost decade. But 2000 to 2009, Charlie, this was painful. 10 years, negative 0.95% return. And again, you talk about a warm blanket. If you have the Delta pension during those 10 years, 6.33% was the return during those 10 years for that. Now, will it be 6.33 if we have another lost decade the next 10 years? I don't know. But I do think a lost decade is a lost decade in stocks.
Yeah.
You made no return. And so this is the like I said, the warm blanket for those that invest in it in case the next decade is not good. And we can't control returns.
Yeah. And Kevin, just to recap what you said there, because I think it's really important. In the lost decade, when I started investing, 2000 to 2010, the S&P, like you just said, annualized. What was it? Was it slightly negative? -1?
Yeah, it was like negative 0.97. I think it was somewhere around negative 1%.
Yeah. So that was the annualized rate of return for 10 years. And had you had the market-based cash balance plan, it would have been around 6% annualized, I think is what you showed there. So
Yes.
So that's huge. I mean, and lately, last year especially, people were like, why don't we just invest in the S&P? It does better than everything else, in the world than it has for some time. And that's true, but it won't always be that way. And I think that's the part that we have to really think through. And that's where this market-based cash balance plan can be very beneficial when those times happen again.
And for the savvy pilot that's saying, yo, idiots, you could have just held on. If you just kept investing in the S&P, it all worked out. And yes, it did. But the key thing, Charlie, you've told your story a few times. During that lost decade, when year after year, you're quote unquote throwing good money after bad, it's hard to stay the course after 10 whole years of negative performance. And any comment on what you did?
I was done at 5 years. I was like, I'm a buy and hold. I can do this. But 2005, I was like, I'm done with this stupid S&P 500. I don't like it.
So that's really the risk. And that's where diversification comes in. So let's look at just one final slide. And for those of you that are listening, it's 2025 this year. And I put, yay, tell the truth, everybody. If you're listening, tell the truth. Did you get nervous at all in April when markets, the S&P 500 went down 19%? Not a bear market, Charlie. No, this is not a bear market. 19% went down. And those that had the market-based cash balance plan, I know there's been some issues with Fidelity and seeing your account balances and what things are going on, but you kind of knew that you were okay with that money. And, it looks like it might have been down maybe 3 or 4% at the bottom, where again, the S&P 500 was down 19%. So think about this plan as being the safer part. And I think you'll do fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And even you mentioned 2022, that was like a 2008 for bonds. And so, even if you're again, that's where that guaranteed part of the market-based cash balance comes in, because bonds don't always do, well when we think they should. So there's again, another advantage there that I think is helpful in that pension time. Anyway, 2022
was the most tremendous bond market crash in the history of the country, Charlie.
Yeah, that's crazy, but it's true.
Yeah. So Charlie, the last thing I'd like to jump into is just the gotchas. in the market-based cash balance plan. So if you receive a check, if you're going to be taking an in-service distribution and Fidelity's going to send you a check, I would say stop right there. There's almost no reason to receive a check, Charlie, unless you want to spend the money. Sometimes people have gotten a check at Delta and they've had 20% withheld on their check, and then they have to make up that 20%. They can roll it over, 60-day rollover. But anytime they're going to send you a check, or if you're receiving a check, stop right there. And unless you're going to spend the money, you might be doing the wrong thing.
Kevin,
the next gotcha.
Let me just on that one. I think the scenario you're talking about is where somebody's 59 and a half and they want to take their market-based cash balance plan and roll it into an IRA or roll it to their 401k. It sounds like some people have, mistakenly, and this is one way to do it. We don't think it's the right way. They've mistakenly used the technique of, hey, send me a check and I will then subsequently deposit this in my 401k or IRA. Do not do that is kind of what you're saying, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you say I got 60 days to do it, and sometimes people are like, "Oh, I can take the money and spend some, and then I'll fly a lot in the next 2 months." Yeah. So that's just not something we think is prudent. But again, you can do anything you want. It's your money. But that's
the alternative. There is a direct rollover, a direct transfer, institution to institution is the way that somebody should do that. So just Good. It makes sense to me now.
Yeah, no, thank you, Charlie. Thank you. Hey, Charlie, do most people like to talk to their ex-spouses after they're divorced? I would say probably 99.5% don't want to, and the other half a percent are crazy and they shouldn't be flying anymore. But if you have an ex-spouse, proceed with care. And again, I don't know how much this happens. I just know sometimes divorce decrees are written in a way that if you don't go back and read them, you could be in trouble. So taking money out of a pension, again, this is a pension, could mean something to a divorce attorney and your ex-spouse. So just be careful. And then the final thing, and the biggest takeaway that I got from studying this plan is that every year you have a new beginning, Charlie. Mm-hmm. Hope springs eternal every year. Every year you get to make a choice about what you want to do with your cash balance pension. And so, if you want to be scenario number one, put no money in, you can. If you want to be scenario number two, you're fully funding it. If you want to be scenario number three, you're super funding it. You become a superhero. You can do all of those things. But the issue with Delta is you must decide early in the year. If you don't beat the non-elective contribution in, you lose the chance. Yeah. So that's really the biggest takeaway I saw that might be different than some of the other airlines is that you really do have to have a plan.
Yeah, I think so too. It sounds like thinking about this in November, December might be the right way to do it,
for the next year.
Yeah, for the next year. So you can start fresh, like you said, in January and know what you want to do, know what your contributions are going to be in your 401k. So time gets away from us, especially the beginning of the year. And if you're a few months into it, it's hard to make that up if you have a plan that you want to do anyway. But Kevin, that's awesome, man. Very helpful. Thanks for digging into that, the weeds into the market-based cash balance plan for Delta. And we will, as soon as the other airlines come out with their versions, we'll tackle those as well. But if anybody has any questions for us, just feel free to email us, kevin@leadingedgeplanning.com. Charlie, CHARLIE @leadingedgeplanning.com. We will answer your questions, or we will find out the answer if we don't know. We'll dig into the weeds because we like to learn about it too. So just give us an email, and we'll be happy to respond as best we can for sure.
Yeah, and Charlie, just final thing is, if people do have ideas that are different than us, we love for them to share them. They can share them on our YouTube. Mm-hmm. They can share them, like you said, to us, and we can read them on a future podcast. But the way we think about money might be different than the way you think about money, and we're happy to understand, how you think this plan should best be used.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's circumstances are different. So think about it, be intentional, and get a plan. So Kevin, thanks again. Thanks to all of our pilots and our pilot tribe. Thanks again for the rating and reviews, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Charlie.
Hello, Pilot Podcast family. Charlie here. I just wanted to share with you something we've just recently developed. In the show notes, you're going to see the Pilot Wealth Index. We want you to check it out. Give it a shot. It's a quiz, a short questionnaire that allows you to understand, are you on track? We have a lot of people that say, hey, we just want to know if we're on track. Are we where we should be at this stage of our flying career, airline career, whatever it might be? How am I doing? Am I close to my peer group? Am I behind? Am I ahead? We've developed some questions, some metrics that we think if you go through this and check it out, answer the questions, you will have a very good idea of where you stand. We developed the questions that give an indication of, are you doing the right things you need to do to be prepared for an eventual retirement, and that one that can be profitable for you. So check it out in the show notes, the Leading Edge Pilot Wealth Index. We hope you give it a shot. If you have any questions at all, reach out. Happy to help. Charlie at leadingedgeplanning.com. Again, that's Charlie at leadingedgeplanning.com. You can call or text me on my cell, 865-328-4969. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Pilot Money Guys podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you listen. We are grateful for your reviews because they encourage others to listen in. Visit leadingedgeplanning.com to learn more and subscribe to our newsletter. Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC, LEFP, is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where LEFP and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.